up by 157% to vote. Here's Chris.
Chris Cuomo here. Thank you for joining me on NewsNation. News for all of us, left, right, and reasonable. Speaking of reasonable, can we all just agree we have to fix what is happening online with censorship? One side says democracy is on the ballot. The other side says we have to stop deep state interference. And yet neither is jumping on what Zuckerberg finally admitted today. The government was on him about controlling content related to COVID-19, and he went along with it. Now, there is a bigger conversation that we're also not having about whether outside regulation is needed over online content. We have it broadcast TV, other media. Google Section 320, and you'll see that we're in a different landscape here because of the pass given to online platforms. And they aren't exactly publishers, right? Because all the content is coming from outside in. And I'm very slow to have limits placed on what can be said. I believe you want an open marketplace of ideas and let the best ideas win. But that debate must be shelved for this instant circumstance. This is a separate issue. This isn't Meta or any of the other platforms deciding how to police content or not and by what standard. This is Meta being told by a government with a stilted agenda, in my opinion, to do things, and they did them. I'm not sure why many in the media are slow to condemn what happened here. There is no question it happened and still happens, and I can prove it. Now, I am not exactly unknown, right? And yet, the same accounts I have had for years without incident, suddenly, post-COVID, started getting flagged, content restricted, or removed. TikTok shut me down for a hot second. And I laughed because who does that to a member of the media? I've had 8 videos removed from TikTok alone for violating community guidelines. This was all stuff I put on TV. Once removed, nobody gets to see the videos except you if you're signed into the account. Now, TikTok has since restored all the videos. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. They got caught. Now, what were the videos about? Well, I was naked. No, I'm kidding. 3 about the vaccine, 3 about COVID, 1 about Gaza, 1 about that horrible case of that kid who was put on the treadmill by his diabolical father. Brianne Dressen, remember her? The mom suing AstraZeneca for the vaccine trial. Caroline Stancic, remember her? The soldier that was injured by the vaccine and the military was messing around with her until advocates got involved. Dr. David Petrino, saying that people get more sick after having COVID. I know that's true. I have long COVID. Podcast video about vaccines under Trump versus Biden. Flagged. What? Arwa Damon, live from Gaza, talking about the pain and suffering. Now, that one was probably about gore and talking about gore, which is, again, a different conversation, really. Me talking about the Corey Michelow case, which was the treadmill abuse. Remember that little beautiful kid? A tease from my Substack that we do on long COVID, which you should check out if you're into longevity or long COVID. But we're just talking COVID and how to get better from it. We're talking about the significance of mitochondria with Dr. Robin Rose when you have COVID and long COVID. Banned. Okay? Banned. Here's the proof. Banning a journalist from posting what I've already aired, mind you. After further review, your account will remain permanently banned due to a violation of our integrity and authenticity policy. Now, what are the guidelines that I violated? They don't tell you. But here are the different little bullet points. Safety and civility, mental and behavioral health, sensitive and mature themes, integrity and authenticity, regulated goods and commercial activities, privacy and security. They're all BS. They're all amorphous BS pockets that they could put anything in. Now, look, here's the truth, okay? They clearly have keyword identifiers in algorithms, okay, that are monitoring content. And they are obviously looking to flag COVID and vaccine and other things. Now, that is not wrong on its face. It depends what and why. We all know there's a lot of BS out there on these issues, flagrantly abusive of fact and circumstance. A research report in 2020 showed nearly 20% of videos presented by TikTok search engine contain misinformation on topics ranging from COVID-19 to January 6th, the insurrection, whatever you want to call it. I don't think it was an insurrection, but that doesn't matter. There are two real problems here for our democracy, okay? And they are everywhere online, including Twitter. Now, I single out Twitter because Musk, I believe, has been much more outspoken about censorship and how he wants his platform to be different. Now, I do take a little bit of an issue with some of the choices that he makes on his account and what to spread, because sometimes I find them to be misleading or incomplete at best. So I think there's a little bit of a mixed message. But again, I think he also stands apart. There is a place for a standard, okay? These platforms have the manpower and the capability to do much better, especially with AI advances. Artificial intelligence really can change this. And we know they can do better. How? Because of the advances they've made in their ability to place ads and increase traffic and revenue. They know how to manipulate content and get a read on what content means for their bottom line. Now, what Zuckerberg just said here must be looked at more closely. So we had a graphic made of the specific admissions. Put them up. The government did with respect to what should be flagged, okay? Russian disinformation, the Hunter laptop, Hunter Biden, and COVID-19 and the vaccine. Zuckerberg says they came at him, asking him to do things, got pissed off when they didn't flag certain types of content. Now, as part of his remedies, he says he's not going to donate big anymore. That's interesting. You know, I believe that money is what fuels the madness when it comes to the political parties. But why did he give in originally? Why didn't he call them out then when it was happening? And nothing ever happened before the Biden administration? I find that very hard to believe. A couple of reasons. Trump and his crew were very heavy-handed when it came to media and trying to influence coverage. And a lot of people in the agencies were there for both administrations, especially when it came to COVID. So on top of that, this idea of presidential administrations, government pushing up on media is not new. I remember during the war, post 9/11, the government coming at the media for what we were reporting, had to protect troop movements. President Bush, George W. Bush, saying the media was hurting troop security. Ratings tanked. So, you know, politicians try to influence what the media does. There's no question about that. But it can't be in quiet. That's the key here. That is what Zuckerberg is not revealing and should have said when he was before Congress. He needs to explain why he's doing it now and why he didn't do it then. If you want to worry about democracy, worry about this. The Washington Post says democracy dies in darkness. True, with censorship online. Candidates should be pushed to discuss how to do better. Not just doing this, not just blaming the other one who does more dirty deeds online. That gets us nowhere but worse. And they both, remember, neither have said a word about this. Both. We need the people who want to lead us. So both need to call for a non-congressional, non-government review of the pandemic to see what was done right, what was done wrong, to learn for the next time, but also to shine a light on what is still happening with the control of what you can get to see, long COVID and what they know or don't know, vaccine effects and what they know or don't know. It is time to know more and to know better. Instead of this just being fodder for the blame game, let's demand that what Zuckerberg just said gets taken seriously by everyone in an effort to get better. Now, to the state of play. Harris had a boogeyman, right? She won't do an interview. She won't do an interview. Now she's doing an interview. Thursday night, CNN's Dana Bash, okay? Look, not that it matters, but Dana is as good as you can ask for, okay? It's just, I don't care what you see, what clips with it. I've known her for years. Her father was a mentor to me when I worked at ABC News. She's the real deal, okay? And everybody's going to be sore about it. And why is she with Walls? Hey, look, you said she wouldn't do an interview. Now she's doing an interview, all right? They're doing an interview. You're still not happy? Look, do I wish that she had done that here? Yeah, I wish one of them, both of them, they should come here. They should be everywhere. I'm greedy. I want the access. But They said she wasn't doing one. Now she's doing one. All right? It also appears that Trump will not be backing out of his debate with Kamala Harris on September 10th, although I don't understand one of the issues that was a sticking point. So you know what I did? I called up the campaign and said, can we have somebody who knows what's going on? And they said, sure. How about Corey Lewandowski? I said, I'd love that. So here he is. Corey Lewandowski, good to see you.
Chris, you didn't wear a tie for me today. I'm very insulted. Very insulted.
You know why? You know why? I'll tell you why. Now, Lewandowski, you know this because you were also a popo once, right? People with ties are usually in people's lives for bad reason. So I don't wear a tie because I'm trying to be less like...
Okay. I would take this tie off if I could. You're right.
No, listen, I know it's a clip-on. Let me ask you this. Dana Bash, you know, I know even better. She's a straight shooter. They're doing an interview with her. Does that end the discussion about Harris needing to do more media?
Of course it doesn't. Chris, doing one interview as a nominee for a major political party running for president of the United States with 70 days to go does not put aside the fact that you should make yourself accessible to the media. And look, when you look at what Kamala Harris has done, she said on the 8th of this month, I hope to have an interview done by the end of the month. And you juxtapose that with where Donald Trump has been. He's done 29 media interviews over that period of time.
Not here.
He continues to answer questions when he goes to the border, when he does these events. He continues to answer questions. So just because Kamala Harris has finally decided that she's going to sit down, I think with Tim, sit down as a team to go and have a conversation with Dana, does not make this the end-all, be-all. It should be the beginning. And Dana is a professional, and I give her credit for the way she conducted the debate with Donald Trump and Joe Biden. That being said, Chris, this candidate has to be held accountable for the things she said in the past and the position she's now changed.
100%. 100%. But this is the game you guys all play. Like I said, you're not going to find a more fair outlet than NewsNation. It's literally our business plan. He hasn't been here. We offered him a town hall on the southern border. Still offer it. I'll go down there with you. Corey, we can walk around. I'll pay for every meal. And so people make selective choices about where to be. Love having you here. Important to have the campaign represented. We know each other a long time, both fair brokers. But this is what politicians do, is they pick and choose on preference. Fair?
Absolutely true. And listen, Chris, what did we see this Sunday when Tom Cotton was on one of the major networks? We had an apologist for Kamala Harris advocating what her positions were. And Senator Cotton pushed back and said, hey, how do you know that? How do you know she's changed her positions? And the truth is that most of the mainstream media has become such an apologist for the left that the candidates don't want to go on those networks anymore because they don't feel they get a fair shake. I love the long form interview you guys do here. It gives people the opportunity to actually have a real conversation and not be stuck to a 2 or 3 minute soundbite.
Listen, I'm with you. That's why I keep making the invitations. Don't worry. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I even keep saying to you guys, it doesn't have to be me, but I don't know why you guys wouldn't want to address the audience that's going to affect this election the most, the independents. We have overweighted independents watching this. Not overweight independents. Overweighted, I'm saying, as a function. Now, let me ask you something about the debate. I actually thought that the former president was going to pull out because of what had happened on the Sunday show and his feelings about legacy media. But what is this about the muting of the mics? What am I missing about this? Who cares if the mics are open or not when you're talking or not talking? And why would Trump not want the mics open all the time?
Here's what it is, Chris. Listen, when we negotiated this with the Biden-Harris campaign, by the way, the second name on that campaign was Harris, we agreed to what the debate criteria was going to be. And it was very simple, and they agreed to that. Now, all of a sudden, Kamala's team has come back to us and said, listen, she wants to sit down for the entire debate. She'd like to bring notes for the entire debate. And by the way, we want to make sure that she can keep her microphone on. And when you go back and look at the performance of, Vice President Harris in some of the previous debates, she uses the same line where she says, while someone else is talking, excuse me, I was talking. We know that that's what she wants to do. She wants to interrupt Donald Trump. And so, look, I think it is fair. Hey, let the candidates answer. Let's not have a back and forth. Let's hopefully talk about some policy matters because there are serious differences between where these two candidates stand on the major issues facing America. And so let them talk.
Corey, come on. Absolutely let them talk. I would do a debate with no moderators. I believe you should be able to stand up there as adults and let people decide how you treat one another. I know that's a statement against interest as a media guy, but I think it would be the best for people. You get the straightest read. But come on, he's a big boy. He knows how to handle himself. it sounds like he's worried that like Harris is going to like dominate him in the debate. And by the way, her campaign denies what you're saying, that she has these preconditions, she needs to sit down and all that stuff, that you're making that up.
Yeah, but Chris, all of the rules for these debates were agreed to, before they decided to kick Joe Biden to the curb and then coronate Kamala Harris. But she was still part of the original process. I understand she was part of the vice presidential debate process at that time, but those rules were adhered to by her team then. So now she wants to change those rules. Why does she get to change them? I don't understand. And look, hey, you and I both remember when Donald Trump debated Hillary Clinton and they had live microphones and they were on the whole time, and Donald Trump was incredibly witty and fast and told Hillary she'd be in jail if he was the president. And it was a funny, self-deprecating conversation. And by the way, Donald Trump is so fast and so good on his feet. Those one-liners are so well delivered that, he's always exceeded debate expectations. I just don't understand why Kamala Harris has to sit for the whole debate and wants to bring notes.
I can't even understand why you can't say her name. And you're sort of big shot on that campaign and you can't say her name. You can't even say her name.
Are you saying I'm not saying her name?
Kamala. It's like the pronunciation. Come on. I know you're doing it on purpose. I know you're doing it on purpose.
I would never do such a thing, Chris. Chris, I would never do such a thing.
Let me ask you one other thing. Project 2025, I have said here, I am not impressed with it as a boogeyman. There is some stuff in it that is disturbing. The only part I don't like is the former president doing a David Duke with it. I don't know who he is. I never heard of him before. That wasn't true. Project 2025, he knows what it is. I'm not saying he's read every page. But why deny understanding the existence? Because you wind up fueling it as a boogeyman. He must be afraid of people connecting him to it for him to deny even knowing what it is. And the concern is a lot of it in there reduces the power of the institutions of the government in favor of what you call the unitary executive, the unified executive, or an authoritarian system.
Well, look, I don't know what's in the Project 2025 book. I've never read it. By the way, any long documents like that, you know me, Chris, I can't read. The long documents, short documents are good for me.
I'm talking about Trump.
But I know, but here's the thing, Chris. All of these outside organizations, not all, but many of them, have their plan of what is going to happen should Donald Trump get elected. And the Heritage Foundation is just one of many. And I can tell you Donald Trump wasn't involved with it. Our team wasn't involved with it. We had no input in writing the Project 2025 or the others because we aren't focused on what Project 2025 is focused on, which is after the election. The only thing we're focused on is the next 70 days. The next 10 weeks from tonight is election night.
But you may lose votes.
That's all we care about. Now, look, hey,
you may lose votes. Why don't you say we won't do what's in there?
Look, he's already disavowed the thing, and I believe, unless I'm mistaken, they've closed the whole Project 2025 down. They said it's done. We're not even doing this anymore. And that's up to the Heritage Foundation to run their own business the way they do it. I have nothing to do or how they run their business. But I will say this, right? You can't hold Donald Trump accountable, nor can you hold Kamala accountable for what outside groups do or say when you have no control over it. Because if that's the case, I think of all the progressives and all the liberals who say these crazy, wacky things that Kamala probably agrees with, but doesn't have to be accountable for.
You just got her name right, by the way. I knew you were faking it. I knew you were faking it. You said it. You said it the right way there. Listen, Corey Lewandowski, you're always welcome here to make the case, and I appreciate you doing it. And please, tell the big man that they are welcome here. And we want him to make the case to the American people. And it should, if you want to do the border, we'll do a town hall right from there. We believe in exposing this audience. This audience is going to make the difference. They're independent voters, Corey. Please pass the word. I'm around if you ever want to talk about it, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, Corey Lewandowski, thank you. All right, now let's bring in Trump's former White House communications director, Anthony Scaramucci. He published a piece titled, "Trump is planning to use Project 2025 to build a Russia-style oligarchy in the United States," and former Obama campaign advisor, Amisha Cross. Good to have you both. Now, Anthony, you heard Corey. It's not the first time we've heard this from the campaign. Wasn't us, not going to be us, don't even know what's in it. You don't buy it. Why?
Well, let's just go to Russell Vaught, who was the OMB director for the Trump administration that was caught on tape last week saying that Trump's disavowal of this is a ruse, that he's all in on it. He put 85 of his loyalists in the project, and the project very clearly demarcates things that he wants to do, including the deportation of 15 million people in the United States, which, as I say in my piece, that would be like a replay of season 1 of The Handmaid's Tale. So Corey and I are close. I'm friends with Corey. I'm not going to let our politics get in the way of our friendship. We work together. And Trump is very lucky to have somebody like Corey on his team. But I know the Trump playbook. He says that he doesn't know somebody or he doesn't know of something when he's trying to disavow it. That's the transactional nature of Donald Trump.
Do you believe that he has, you say Russia style, was good, catchy for the headline, but I have a hard time believing that Donald Trump has the depth of understanding or of strategic ambition to pull anything like that off. I think he just wants to win to say he did.
He's a messenger. You know, these guys that have attacked, he had normal garden variety Republicans in the first campaign. He now has these like right-wing anarcho-Christians that write things like the Project 2025. I guess the other thing you'd have to ask Corey is what about Project 47, which is right there on the Trump website where 45% of it is identical to Project 2025. So he's a messenger. He's got a group of people that have adhered themselves to him, and he wants power. He wants to stay in power. He said about 4 weeks ago, hey, listen, just have to vote for me this time. You won't have to vote anymore. I take that stuff very seriously. Now, you may not take it seriously. You may see him as intellectually vacuous, but I know how smart he is. I worked on that first campaign, did 71 campaign stops with him, and he's way more organized, Chris. Let me say something to the Kamala Harris campaign. These guys are way more organized than they were in 2016 and 2020, and they want it badly. He is the worst Republican candidate since Herbert Hoover. He lost the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and he wants it very badly. They're diabolical people, and you got to get ready for this, and you better articulate to the American people the cruelty and the menace that Trump and his minions represent to the American people.
The question is, Amisha Cross, what is the bigger boogeyman for the American people who are going to vote what Trump represents or what they believe a radical left agenda that they've been being sold would represent? So Harris and Walz say they're going to do an interview with CNN. I can't question the outlet. I can't question the journalist. Dana Bash is top notch. People aren't satisfied. They say she shouldn't be sitting down with Walz. She's there with Walz because they know she's going to screw up. What's your read?
I think it's completely ignorant. Kamala Harris could do 15 interviews in the next 2 days with journalists from, ABC, NBC, CBS, NewsNation, CNN, News, any one of them, including the print outlets as well, full court press. And at the end of the day, people on the right would not be satisfied. I think that it was very smart to wait this thing out until the DNC was over, until she was the official nominee. But with that being said, I don't think anyone on her campaign was surprised that there was going to be a sit-down interview shortly thereafter the DNC ended. I was on CNN earlier this morning. Republicans continue to push. Sit down with the press. She needs to sit down with the media. She's running from the media. That was never the case. She was meeting people where they are, making sure that she was delivering her message on the ground. Be mindful. She was literally just officially nominated last week. That happened on Thursday. This ticket has only existed for a month. The time frame that she has is extremely truncated. She's going to have that media conversation. I think that it's going to go extremely well. Walz is new to the American public as well. They should be doing it as a tag team, and it's going to go very strongly. And this is the first of probably many that's going to happen. But she's also tempering that with so much travel she has to do within the battleground states over the next few weeks and months.
She should just take questions when she's on the hustings. Just do the press conferences at the events, and then you kill two birds with one stone. Amisha Cross, I appreciate you as always. Anthony Scaramucci, love you. You guys are a very good pairing, by the way. I mean, she kind of makes you look like Uncle Fester a little bit. But other than that, the points were great. I'm going to take a break.
Hair, Chris.
I'll talk to you both soon.
You're envious of my hair, man.
You've got a great head of hair. It's fake, though. It's fake. It's not real. It's mink. His hair is mink. I've seen the tag. We've talked a lot about censorship on the show. A buddy of mine knows this issue so well. He's so deep into what the meta boss Zuckerberg is now admitting. And he says the problem is bigger than you know, okay? Google Michael Schellenberger in the break, and you will see this is the guy to hear from right now. And you will next. Tell us why you didn't like it. And then Zuckerberg should explain what their choice structure was. Now, of course, Zuckerberg admitted it was ultimately Meta's decision to take down any content, but also believes that he wrote that he believes the alleged government pressure was wrong and that he regrets Meta was not more outspoken about it. So now the question is, how much, how often, because it's still going on. I showed you at the top of the show, I'm still getting flagged. So let's bring in the founder of the Substack Public, Michael Schellenberger. It's good to see you, brother.
Good to be with you, Chris.
As they used to say, this ain't the half of it. What do people need to know?
Well, I mean, look, I think, obviously it would have been better for Zuckerberg to have sent this letter before the Supreme Court ruled on this issue. I think the Supreme Court decision might have gone the other way because that case, unfortunately, the Supreme Court filed was, before the Twitter files, before the Facebook files. So, it's a little bittersweet in that way, but obviously we should take the W here. He's acknowledged what many people had dismissed as a conspiracy theory. We now know that the FBI was directly involved in spreading misinformation about the laptop before it was released. Of course, it was in their possession. Hunter Biden's laptop, that's right. We know, of course, that the CIA, including the director of the CIA, was involved in spreading that misinformation, suggesting that it might have been Russian disinformation related to the laptop. We know that wasn't true. So it's nice to see that those things that people had said were conspiracy theories were in fact being confirmed as true. I think the thing that people need to know is that there was so much censorship by so many people. It was the White House, it was the Department of Homeland Security, it was the FBI, and they created sort of third-party groups, particularly one connected out of Stanford. Happily, that was actually shut down, the Stanford Internet Observatory. So on the one hand, it feels like it's winding down. On the other hand, I think that there's still, these guys are all under a lot of pressure, meaning Zuckerberg, from groups that want to see more censorship. I mean, you're still being censored. I'm being censored on a bunch of things. There's not really any transparency on it. There's no real proper set of appeals. But I think it's going to be a little bit harder now for the government to get involved in censorship. I think they've been exposed. So even though we didn't win with the Supreme Court, I think that the conversation, at least the public conversation, has changed pretty significantly.
Remind people what the case was.
So this was a case brought by the attorneys general of Missouri and Louisiana against the Biden administration for censorship. Now, it was called Murphy v. Missouri. It was originally Missouri v. Biden, but this was a case, unfortunately, it was filed before the Twitter files and Facebook files. So really the most dramatic cases weren't really in there. And so it really lost on standing. The Supreme Court didn't really rule on the specifics of the case. I mean, I'll give you one example, Chris. Facebook at one point told the White House that censoring often true stories of vaccine side effects would actually increase vaccine hesitancy. And the White House said, do it anyway. And the White House, ironically or not ironically, was under pressure from the media to censor more. Of course, there's a conflict of interest because Pfizer was funding a huge amount of advertising. But when you look at it, it's, what was so disturbing about it is it was just a kind of blindly irrational desire to shut people up. Sometimes the censorship.
I feel like we're only a couple layers into the onion, though, Michael, because one, the media is not going nuts about this, which has always puzzled me. And I don't mean that in any suggestive way, of anything conspiratorial. But maybe they're just not getting hooked the way I have been, so that it's always been very obvious to me that there are algorithmic choices. There's a choice structure within an algorithm, and they are obviously flagging things. Now, I don't have a problem with them flagging things because we have a broader conversation. There should be forms of standards, right? You and I have standards when we publish, right? You work at a place, you got accountability, you got layers. It's a problem with certain independent media that isn't as scrupulous as you, as often there's no accountability chain. But I feel like we're just scratching the surface here of what's being done online without us really being able to perceive it.
Yeah, I mean, that I totally agree. And I think that we should have transparency. I mean, I think it's important for viewers to remember that the 1996 law that enabled social media platforms to exist and also search, Google, often we leave it out, but it's also covered by what's called Section 230. that distinguishes between publishers like myself or the New York Times or NewsNation and platforms like Facebook or Twitter, now X. And that I think that and the difference is that if you're a platform, you get a huge amount of liability protection that publishers don't get. So I think that if the taxpayers and the citizens of our country are going to give this sweeping liability protection to the platforms, then they should make it transparent the kind of choices that they're making in their recommendation algorithms. So what are they pushing people? And then I think I should be able to choose my own filters, and other people could use whatever filter they want. You could choose a Biden filter. You could choose a Trump filter. You could choose your own filters. I think that's the way that this ultimately has to work out. But we've seen things go in the other way, where basically now the platforms, X and Facebook, are themselves acting more like publishers. So, I think it's changed a lot. Obviously, the big difference is Elon Musk buying Twitter. But also on the Facebook side, Zuckerberg's response to all the pressure he got to censor more was just to throttle news content generally and reduce the news content on the platform.
I said 320 in my open. I meant 230. But we're talking about the same thing, and I love your recommendations for how it can change. You guys who are watching out here, I know you consume a lot of stuff on social media. Think about this, because it's being done to you right now more than it's being done for you. Michael Schellenberger, thank you very much. Public is a great Substack, worth the subscription. Take care. 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Coming up, did you hear about this town in Massachusetts that just got put on a curfew? Deadly mosquito-borne illness. Guess what? Dr. Anthony Fauci went to the hospital for a mosquito-borne illness just a few days ago. West Nile virus. Plus, this New Hampshire resident died after testing positive for encephalitis. That's another mosquito-borne illness. And on top of that, there's something now that they're calling sloth fever, also carried by mosquitoes. So, is this just we're being told about something that we've already known and they're just hyping it, or is this new? Answers next. Probably. I'm a little ahead on this story, but I'm very sensitive to these things. This New Hampshire resident died after testing positive for a mosquito-borne encephalitis virus. Dr. Tony Fauci was recently hospitalized with West Nile virus. One town in Massachusetts, residents are being asked to stay indoors after dark so they don't get bitten as much by mosquitoes. And now there's this new thing called sloth fever, also carried by mosquitoes. It's in the news today. So I've been seeing these things, and I'm worried about is this just something we're just paying attention to, or is it new in terms of scale, scope, and severity? Dr. Peter Hotez, Dean of the School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine, this dude knows, and I've talked to him before, trusted source for me. Doc, good to see you again.
It's great to see you, Chris.
So is this where this happens, you're just deciding to report on it now, or no, this doesn't usually happen, and we have to be aware, and here's why.
Yeah, these mosquito-transmitted viruses are indeed accelerating, Chris, and it's happening not only in the eastern half of the United States and on the Gulf Coast and where I am in Texas, but it's also happening in the Caribbean, and it's happening in Brazil and in Central Latin America. So it's a hemisphere-wide problem, and we're seeing the sloth fever is also called Oropouche virus, and that's thousands and thousands of cases now in Brazil, and it's even been linked to birth defects. And we're seeing importation cases here in the United States. What affected Tony Fauci, our mutual friend and colleague, is West Nile virus, and that's on the rise. We're also seeing a lot of dengue fever now in Brazil in unprecedented levels, and that's now expected to hit the Gulf Coast of the United States. So we're getting ready. This is going to be one of our new normals, unfortunately, in the summer and early fall in the United States and in the Western Hemisphere.
Why now? What do we do about it?
What do we do about it? Well, I think, one of the problems is when someone comes in to see their physician, say they go into an emergency room and they have, say, a fever and a rash or headache or what's called photophobia, they're afraid of the light. First of all, a lot of the doctors aren't even trained to recognize these arbovirus infections, arthropod-borne virus infections. Problem number one. Problem number two, the early phases of the illness are very nonspecific. So the doctor or the healthcare provider doesn't really know what they're seeing, and we don't have good what's called point of care diagnostic tests. So by the time someone gets diagnosed, it could be days afterwards. So what I think we need to do is implement a very detailed system. We're trying to do this now at our National School of Tropical Medicine, a detailed surveillance system where we're looking at collecting mosquitoes, doing the full genomes of the mosquitoes and their viruses, doing wastewater testing, and get a more complete county by county map or district by district map. The other problem is our fragmented health system. So some county health departments do what's called surveillance. Others don't. Some have capability for mosquito control. Others don't. So the whole system needs to be upgraded.
Is there medicine? Because the whole stay indoors thing is not going to work, especially with people coming off of COVID. You know how they feel about that. So, I mean, is this just some cyclical thing, or is there something we can take, or do you just have to spray like crazy? I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, it's really important that people take personal protective measures. So, for instance, I try to get my 10,000 steps in every day, and I do an early morning walk in the morning and then one in the evening, which is unfortunately the maximal time when Culex mosquitoes are biting. So what I do, even though the weather's warm, I'm in full sweatpants, hooded sweatshirt, and a cap, and then on the exposed parts of my dorsal and palmar surface of my hands and on my neck, I put on insect repellent that contains 40% DEET. People, in my neighborhood sometimes look at me like I'm a bit crazy, but I say, look, I don't want to get West Nile virus. I don't want to get some of these other conditions. So that's absolutely important, in addition to the county and the city doing appropriate mosquito control interventions.
Dr. Hotez, thank you very much, but I got to tell you, I don't feel a lot better. At least I know it's real. But here's one more thing to worry about. Thank you very much, Doc. And as it progresses, please reach out to us when it's time for updates and changes and stuff like that so we can stay on it, okay?
Absolutely. I appreciate being on.
All right, brother. Be well. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Man, it's like always something. Anyway, astronauts go to space. It's supposed to be an 8-day mission. They left in June. All right, now we're being told they're going to be there for over 8 months. Oh, but they're not stranded. Well, then what the hell is it? And what are they telling the families? We have the mother of one of the astronauts with what she's been told and what she feels about all this. And how are kids doing?
That we've practiced a lot, so I have a feeling, I have a real good feeling in my heart that the spacecraft will bring us home, no problem.
I remember that. You gotta love the hair. That was Sunita Williams, one of the two astronauts that blasted off for an 8-day mission to space in the beginning of June. They're still not home, may not be home until September. Now, this is historic, not just because of the extension of the mission, but Sunita is the first woman to have participated in this kind of test flight. Now, what she said there turned out to not be true. They're not going to be completing their mission with no problem. NASA announced Saturday the astronauts are going to have to wait, like I said, till at least February to come home on a different vessel from SpaceX, not from NASA. How are they handling it? How are their families handling it? Okay? Bonnie Pandia, the mother of Sunita Williams, one of the astronauts, joins us now. Bonnie, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, listen, it's a pleasure, and congratulations on the success, the amazing career that Sunita has had, and that hopefully it ends with a triumphant return. What have you been told, and when's the last time you heard from her?
I heard from her the day before yesterday, and she told me not to worry about her. Everything's going to be fine.
What does your mom sense tell you?
I agree with her. I've been an astronaut mom for 20 years, and this is her third flight. Even though it was, it has a problem, we still don't feel that there's a big problem. They just want to be sure that nothing, that everything is, that they're safe coming back. So that's why they decided to keep them up there. But my daughter and Butch both feel that it'll come back safe and sound. So it's double safety.
What advice have you given her about how to spend the time up there?
I don't give her any advice. She knows what to do. She's a seasoned astronaut. She's been up over 400 days in space. So, you know, they have things to do. They have jobs to do. They have experiments. They have cleaning to do. They have exercise. They have to do 2 hours, at least 2 hours every day. And arranging things and putting things in order. There's 9 people up there now. The last time she went up, there were only 3. So, you know, there's quite a few people. I think there's 9, maybe there's 7. I'm not.
That's all right.
Sure.
You're not a reporter on it. You're a mom. You know, last time when she was in space 10 years ago, you wrote stories to her about her dog. You then turned them into a children's book and published them. What are you going to do this time?
What am I going to do? Well, I have the 3rd book is supposed to be coming out, but this is not a children's book. This is about space and astronauts and animals. It's for dog lovers of all ages and people that are interested in space flight. It gives a lot of information about it, tells about her first launch, describing it, how the rocket went up, the Discovery, and it's very interesting. Everybody who's read my books are very enthralled with them, and they're hardly waiting for the 3rd one to come out.
I'm sure, but you don't want to waste all this great material. I'll tell you what, we will not forget that Sunita is up there, and when she comes home, I'd love to have you both on, talk about your book, talk about the experience, because this is some memory that she'll have when she comes back.
Oh, yeah. I'll be happy to, or will be happy to.
All right, Bonnie, I'm here. If there's anything we can do, we're a call away. All right? Thank you for being with us.
All right. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. We'll be right back.